And welcome into another edition of NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by FloRacing here on the Motor Racing Network. Chris Wilner, as always. Kyle Rickey joining me from Killingly, Connecticut. And Kyle, it's stormy as heck here in the Carolinas, but it was all sunshine this past weekend out at Richmond Motor Speedway. We had the Ground Pounders, the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour. What a race, but what a comeback for Justin Bonsignore. We'll start it off right there.
Yeah, Justin, obviously the defending champion of the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour, opened the season at New Smyrna Speedway with an overheating issue, finishing 31st. That would be last. So he had, as he said in post-race, about 7 weeks to think about being last and having to look at those standings and seeing his name at the bottom. But, he has a championship-winning team, and you knew he wasn't going to stay down there long. Quickly bounced back at Richmond Raceway. He and Tommy Catalano had a great run to the finish at the end of that race on Friday night. And it was nice to see Justin back in victory lane at a track in which he DNF'd at a year ago. He had mechanical problems early on in the Modified's return to Richmond last fall. So he didn't have a whole lot of laps there, but bounced back in a big way, claiming his first win of 2022.
Yeah, absolutely, and jumped from 32nd in points up to 9th. So, I mean, that just tells you what kind of a rebound the win for Justin Bonsignore had. Tommy Catalano, again, mentioned, finished second. Great run for him. I think he was up front all day, and, after the race, you could tell he was disappointed, but also thrilled, too, just to be able to battle with Justin and be up front all day. And I think a win is coming for Tommy, the young 24-year-old. Certainly, we'll be hearing from him again this year.
Catalanos have had so much success in modified racing and local modified racing in New York and in the upstate New York region at tracks like Lancaster Speedway. His mom races, Amy. Whole family is involved. It's fun to see the Catalanos roll into a racetrack and sometimes unload, 2, 3, sometimes 4 cars, it seems like. But they say you have to lose one to win one, or before you can win one. And that might have been that one right there at Richmond, because you're right. I think that first win now is only around the corner. He can almost taste victory. But like you said, very happy with that runner-up finish.
And rounding out that top 5, Chuck Hosfeld, Kyle Ebersole rounded from a qualifying spin for a top 5 and 4th. Tyler Ripkema finished in 5th. And Ryan Newman was in the field. Not a lot of people were really expecting him to run until about 2 days prior when some tweets were released of him testing. He didn't have the day he wanted, but kind of cool to see Ryan get back into a modified after so long.
Yeah, he loves the modified race cars, has always found success in them. Before the tour went to Richmond, he would always run the companion events at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. I think he ran Martinsville last year as well. So I expect to see Ryan back in the car at more events this year when time allows, obviously not running a full NASCAR schedule. So, we might see him pop up at short tracks across the country. Who knows? But, it was a last-minute deal. Ran well early. Faded late. I believe he finished 13th, but always good to see Ryan Newman in the field whenever the modifieds roll out.
Absolutely. Eric Goodale and Tommy Catalano will lead the points heading into the next race, which is quite a bit of ways from now. Actually, the modifieds are off again until May 14th, New York's Riverhead Raceway. First of 3 scheduled visits there in 2022. That event will be 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern on FloRacing. You can catch it live there on May 14th. Speaking of modified, Smart Modified Tour, the name Matt Hirschman comes up again. 3 for 4 this season. Kyle, it's like we should just call it the Matt Hirschman Modified Series, really.
He's been on a roll, and I talked to him this week. They figured something out last year. They had a great amount of success a year ago at events that he kind of was cherry picking. He didn't run for points in any given series. He would just show up at big money shows, thus Big Money Matt, and do well. And he did well this past week in a rough and tumble race at South Boston Speedway. 30 cars took the green flag, 13 cautions. They had a pretty big pile up on the front straightaway that eliminated a lot of the top contenders. I believe there were 9 or 10 cars that kind of stacked into each other. Frank Fleming, the first car to get sideways, and it was on from there. But Matt was ahead of it all and was able to claim win number 3 of the season in the first 4 events. They have another event coming up this weekend, Franklin County. They're trying to get as many races as done possible before Bowman Gray opens in 2 weeks, because once Bowman Gray Stadium opens, that's where all the modifieds go on Saturday night. That's when the smart modifieds pretty much take a good chunk of the summer off before going hot and heavy in the fall. So I'm sure Not sure if Matt is going to run for the championship yet, but if he hasn't thought about it, I'm sure he's thinking about it now.
Yeah, I bet you those questions are asked all the time about Matt for sure. Caleb Hetty, Bobby Labonte, a fourth-place finish. He's hungry for a win, but he's been solidly in the top 5, top 10 for all the season as well. But once again, this event, pretty special at South Boston, honoring Mr. Modified Ray Hendrick. Pretty cool event, and obviously fitting for Matt Big Money Hirschman to pick up another win. And Kyle mentioned the coming up on Sunday, they're back at it again, Franklin County Speedway, that event live again on FloRacing. All right, Kyle, before we get to our Icebreaker weekend at Thompson, one of the marquee short tracks up in the New England area, I do want to give a shout out, though. How about Raja Caruth and Derek Griffith making their Xfinity debut at Richmond as we tie a bow on that event? Didn't go as far as finishes the way they wanted to, but again, 2 short trackers, up-and-comers in pretty good pieces, showing kind of what they can do a little bit. They're competitive at times and unfortunately just faded at the end, but pretty cool to see a couple of those rising stars, making it into the NASCAR Top 2 Series.
Yeah, and that's what we want to see, right? And some say we haven't seen enough of it in the last decade or so, especially at the Cup level. And I think that's why a lot of folks cheer so much for a Kyle Larson from the dirt world, or the last couple of years, Ryan Preece in the asphalt world, because, when they're not on the national stage, they are back at their short tracks that they grew up at, and they still continue to find success there. And we saw the same with Derek Griffith, who's been running so well in the past super late models, or pretty much any super late model, seems like on the East Coast over the last couple of seasons. And Raja Caruth, coming up through the East Series, first from the K&N and then ARCA the last 2 seasons. Yeah, I wish they would have had better days, but it was just nice to see them out there, gain that track time, and hopefully we see more of them in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I think actually both are scheduled at Martinsville this weekend too. So back-to-back short tracks, good opportunities for some of these youngsters to get laps in the Xfinity Series. All right, 48th Annual Icebreaker Weekend. Well, it was half the weekend. Part 2 has been postponed to this coming weekend. We'll get to that in a minute. But Saturday, the past late models, DJ Shaw winning the 75 lapper, kicking off a big weekend there at Thompson. And Kyle Thompson, I know you're a little bit biased to Stafford, which is okay. Stafford's one of the all-time greats, but Thompson's a pretty cool racetrack too.
It is, and a lot of people don't know Thompson Speedway, a track that I started my announcing career at many moons ago. It's also the first asphalt racetrack in the country. I bet you.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it was the first. Wow. Purpose-built asphalt track in the country in 1940, and it's run by the same family that built the racetrack back then. The folks from the Pro All-Star Series and the American Canadian Tour are the current promoters, so they are in charge of events like this weekend's Icebreaker, won by DJ Shaw. It was cold. It lived up to its name. And unfortunately, on Sunday, it was wet. So the modified portion of the doubleheader will be run this Saturday. But overall, a great day of racing. I think the hardest wreck of the weekend, unfortunately, was our guest from a week ago, the young Kawicki development driver, Kate Ray, who had all sorts of mechanical issues in her first lap, went into turn number 1 and got the outside wall at a ton. But other than that, a fairly clean day. I was going to say a weekend on Saturday, and a great race for the Pro All-Star Series.
Absolutely. Jake Johnson, Eddie McDonald rounded out the top 3. Steven Kopchik won a barn burner, the Sunoco Modifieds. Again, so some Modifieds did run on Saturday. The Sunoco Modifieds. Photo finish with Mike Christopher Jr., and if you haven't gotten to take a look at it, the replays are online. Be sure to do it because it was absolute mayhem. Back and forth, kind of the crossover moves from Christopher and as well as from the winner there, Skopchik. But I think it was really the penultimate lap that really set up the barn burner there at the end, and it was really cool to see Steven get the win at the line by a mere nose, and that kind of tells you what kind of short track racing is up in New England. So they race hard, and they certainly put on a good show.
Local Modifieds always put on a good show wherever they go, whether it be at Thompson or what they're known as the SK Modifieds at the Stafford Motor Speedway. Steven Kopchik, his first win at the Thompson 5-Ace Mile. Mike Christopher Jr., one of the young talents of this region. It was odd not to see Keith Rocco up there battling for the win because that has, for the most part, been his home territory the last several seasons. And I think he finished outside of the top 5, which is something that we rarely see there. That's how competitive the field at Thompson is. And I can't wait to see him back there. I believe their next race at Thompson is in May.
Rounding out the weekend, or the Saturday portion at least, Jared Roy winning the mini stocks. G-Rod Giordano took home the Pro Trucks. And like we mentioned, day 2 is coming up this Saturday, April 9th. So the Tour Type Modifieds will have their feature, 125 lapper for them. The American Canadian Tour Type late models, SK Lights Limited Sportsman also on the docket. Again, that's coming up this Saturday, April 9th. So be sure to tune in for that. And we want to finish things up while there was a ton of racing. I know Nashville Fairground Speedway had their opening night. It was incredible. But we do want to talk about the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts weekly series down at Hickory. Again, Cars Tour was there already. We already had some other series. But Twin 40s, which is a very unique, we don't see a lot of Twin 40-lap feature events anymore really around the country, besides pretty regularly at Hickory Motor Speedway. Miss Annabeth Barnes-Crum picking up the Race 2 win. A fantastic job for her. It's been a while since she's visited Victory Lane. She won the second race after William Swalich, coming off the Cars Tour win actually last weekend over one of the Quapple brothers, picked up race number 1. But what a weekend for Hickory. I mean, it's been back-to-back there from really good races.
Katie Henninger, also one of the ladies in the field. I believe there were 4 female competitors in the late model. She podiumed in both races, finished second to Annabeth in race number 1. So I'm not sure if we've ever seen a first and second in the late models at Hickory for the ladies. And then she finished third in the opening race of the night. So great car counts. And what's pretty cool is we've talked about, 3 events now, 3 events in the Smart Modifieds, the NASCAR Modified Tour, and racing at Hickory, all of which were on FloRacing. And it was pretty cool to come home Saturday night after the events at Thompson, put Hickory on and see Annabeth back in Victory Lane for the first time in 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And the amount of content on FloRacing is incredible. That'll certainly, if you need something to binge, just go on there, watch all the race recaps. Forget Netflix. Go on to FloRacing and definitely get that done. But pretty cool for Annabeth, again, as we kind of tie a bow on this, that she, in 2020 became just the 3rd female ever to win a late model race at Hickory, and now comes back here in 2022 and picks up an early season win. And you know what? She is on the line, Kyle, so we're going to take a quick break. And coming right back is going to be Annabeth Barnes-Crum joining us here on NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by FloRacing. You're watching NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by FloRacing, the new home of NASCAR Roots. Catch the Wheel and Modified Tour, ARC Menard Series, Pinty's, and NASCAR Weekly Tour races all season long on FloRacing.com. Subscribe today. And joining us now here on NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by FloRacing, it is the driver who picked up the win at Irwindale Speedway about a week or so ago, the 16-year-old out of Las Vegas, Nevada. It's the driver of the 9 Vegas Fastener Manufacturing Ford for Bob Brancati Sunrise Ford Racing, Tanner Reif. Tanner, congratulations. I know it's been like a week or two, but you still riding the highs of that big win out at Irwindale?
Yeah, really just focusing on my pro late model stuff and working on those and getting to track and practicing for more ARC racing and more pro late racing. And it's really a life-changing experience. And, I've had people come up to me and ask me about it, and it's truly probably the best day of my life to this day. I'm sure there'll be better, but to this day, it's probably one of the best.
How does it get much better? You won the pole, you led every lap. I mean, it looks easy on paper when you look at the results, but how was it behind the wheel? I mean, they're never easy.
Yeah, it was a lot of, hard work by the crew and, walking the track and checking the track and watching people watching their lines and, coming in, going back out, making sure, doing a little adjustments, sway bar here, roll center there, just keep on working on it. And we gave it one last run for that qualifying run and pulled out a 43.6, I think it was. And that was really cool because, pole award, and my mom was happy, my dad, the crew, they were all smiling. So set a good tone for the rest of the day.
Yeah, and so then during the race, you led every lap, but what kind of changes were you feeling that allowed you to kind of adapt and keep yourself out front? Because certainly, like Kyle said, you made it look easy, but it's certainly not easy, when you go to the race and lead every single lap.
Yeah, so what's really cool about these ARC Menards cars is that with the tire fans and with the brake adjuster, they change a lot more throughout the race than you can do more as a driver. You can change more drive in, more drive off, and the brake adjuster feels like it does more. And it just, the tire fans, the front brake fans, you can get the car to settle down or to get that bite off, and that really was a key to winning and saving. Getting out and then keeping that distance. My spotter David Cooley, he would give me each lap of my lap to the car behind me and tell me the lap car's coming up. And so throughout the entire race, I was probably driving half the percentage I was the entire time, just so in that last half, the last 30 laps, I could go from a 1.5 second gap to a 3-4 second gap, which I think is what we had before that last yellow.
The first yellow came at lap 61, a fairly long green flag run to open the event. So by lap 61, did you pretty much know that how comfortable you were behind the seat and what you had?
So the car was really good at that lap 61 and gave me a breather to drink some water and to let my crew chief, Jeff Schrader, know what the car was doing. And I was a little tight on the entry and needed more drive off. So came in on that break and we made a tire pressure change and went back out. And on that second half, that first 10 laps where the car was a bit tight, but after that, like the first half, just really good, consistent car. It wouldn't change from lap 5 till about lap 50. It was just the same, and I could squeeze a really good lap out if I really needed it.
And then it came down to a late race restart. So now your mind changes to, okay, what's coming behind me? Does anybody have anything? I mean, obviously you had the car to beat all day, but what was going through your head there to make sure that you nailed that restart? Because, races are won and lost oftentimes on a restart.
I've had it, we've had it many times in our late model series where, you'll be leading the entire race and that last 5 laps, 3 laps, 8 laps on that restart, it can just all go away. But really just, kept my head cool and look forward, and I had really good restarts all race except for maybe the one on the halftime. But even then, when we came out even, I was able to get through the shifts just a little bit better. Practiced that a lot during practice was the restarts, and these transmissions in these cars are incredible. I mean, I'm like, I want one of these for my road car. These are awesome. But really practiced that, and ran a couple laps being held down by Huddleston, and came out clean on that. So I just worried on my shifts, and when I came out at 2 and he said clear by 5, I was super excited. Just ran those last 3 laps as hard as I could and came out with about half a straightaway lead.
Finished 16th at the season opener at the Phoenix Raceway a couple of weeks prior to that, a late race incident there. Did that provide you more motivation going to Irwindale?
So yeah, with that, we only had an hour practice at Phoenix, and the biggest track I ran at was Kern County Speedway. And that's only about a half mile, just a little bit over, I think. And so the Phoenix track was a big step up, as any driver knows, your brain knows it's okay, and you can go that fast, but your heart tells you no. So it's always stepping up, gas, crawling. So by the end of the weekend, we had a top 8 car, had a 8th place, 7th place running car. And with my confidence up after about the halfway break, I was confident in getting a run. And, obviously that late race accident, that kind of sucks, but I knew I had the confidence to go back to that track and run fast laps and learn more and to get more speed out of the car. So that definitely helped with the crew, and the confidence, how the races work and all that stuff. So that was a super cool experience.
And certainly post-race, it was a big deal, and we could tell, watching live on the broadcast, or those that were there at the racetrack, had to pause from the interview to go climb the fence. I mean, the raw emotion, I think, was the coolest thing, and like I just told you off air, too, one of the best post-race celebrations, I think, early on, so far this season. But you had also said that you've trained as harder than for anything else. You put in more of yourself into this than anything else. What's the drive behind that? Because clearly, I think you saw the reward, there on Saturday night, and you caught kind of the emotions with it. So what motivates you, and why are you putting so much into this?
That's a really good question. Is that, I wake up in the morning, go to school, come back from school, get changed, go work it down in our shop. We have a little shop with our late model team down there, and I'll work it down there for 3 hours, whatever's going on, or legend cars, or whatever is going on at the time that we need to prepare for, and come up, eat dinner, and go do iRacing. It's like, and then what do you do on the weekend? Your friend's like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? You're like, going out to California again. Hey, that's the 10th time this month. They're like, I know. You're like racing, and it's the belief in yourself. I've been doing this since I was like 4.5, 5, and it's I put so much work in, and it's the fact that I have the ability to do it, and it's not proving everyone wrong, but it is the proving yourself that you have the ability to do it. You have the drive. You have the ability to listen, to learn, to really get in a new car and just and drive. And that's what made me so happy is I had, friends and the crew, and, all the crew puts in work all week long, 9 to 5, getting that car ready for you to go race. So when you get that win, it's such a good feeling to make your family proud, your team proud, your spotter proud, your crew chief proud, team owner proud. That's really what, does it, is that's the big part of it.
You mentioned you've been doing this for now over 12 years. This is the first time we've been able to have you here on this show. Kind of walk us through your career. You mentioned the late model, and I know you have found success in quarter midgets as well. What got you into it, and ultimately what allowed you to get to the point you're at today?
So when I was 5, it was like 4.5 actually. There was a little pillow. I don't have it in here anymore, but it was a pillow with a stamped picture of my grandpa, and he had a sprint car, old in like the 60s, 70s. I could be incorrect, but around that time, a sprint car. And I was like, I was growing up like, told my dad, like, I want to race, because he owned a custom car manufacturer business, like West Coast Customs sort of stuff, jacked up trucks and Lambos and all that stuff, building all this cool SEMA cars and SEMA trucks, so automotive wise, I was like, this is cool. I want to race. So when he was a kid, was going to race quarter midgets, never got the opportunity to, but so he bought one and he tricked it out, painted it, and all that stuff that he did at his shop. And so we took around a parking lot. And there's a video on YouTube, actually. I seen it the other day. It's like if you search up Tanner Reif and you just look hard enough, you'll find me when I'm like 4.5 in a parking lot, in an abandoned parking lot, doing circles in a blue quarter midget. And so it started from there, and then took it to, I think the first race was either at Orange Show or some club race in Vegas, and tried that out and had success, and, started winning there. And a friend of ours, Rick Ankrum, father of Tyler Ankrum in the truck series right now, was like, hey, you guys there's a national race in New York. You guys should go to it. And we were like, that's kind of funny. We drive a couple hours, go down, fun family thing, go drive a little go-kart around a quarter midget, go around a little track. And it was like, took it more serious. And we started doing the national stuff. And we did, well in there. You want to always, when you do that stuff, you're like, oh, I want to get better. Oh, I want to start winning, So you start winning those, and that builds up to 3 cars, to 4, to 5. So at one point we had, me and my brother had 11 cars, plus a friend of ours we had driving for us. So 12 cars we would tow around in a big rig and go around all these national races. And when I ended up winning the 2014 USAC National Championship for a junior animal, and that was really cool. That was really biggest accomplishment for quarter midgets for me. So that was super fun. And then when I was 10 years old, there was this series in Madera, junior late models, and I was like, that seems interesting for a full car. So you went out and watched the race, and met some people, bought some cars, and tried that out. Crashed it first race. That was cool. First practice, first time on track.
Oh no.
Yeah, just stacked them in the wall. Obviously because it was a transition. We tried bandas. We did like a race and a half in bandas. We didn't like them because that's the whole thing. And so we stepped up to late models. So we tied this 10-year-old kid that's like 4 foot tall and like as much foam as you can get in the seat, going around short track racing. And so did that for a couple of years, got good at that, got a couple wins, stood up to the pro late models, and started doing the pro late series and finding races in Vegas and California, Havasu, tried some modified stuff, really just short track racing, West Coast and SRL, pro late model series, and some super late model races. We tried supers and pros, and we stuck with the pros because, cost effective wise,
sure,
talent and just how it works is it's a really good series, really competitive, really teaches you how to drive a car and, how to be competitive. So we stuck with those and got to those, and, the opportunity came up to run an ARCA car for a popular racing. And so we tried it out, did a couple practices, went well, obviously raced Phoenix, and then that last window race.
So it's been a pretty quick progression for you.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you're in school. You're going to be a junior in high school next year. How do you balance it all? We talked to a lot of drivers on the show too that have kind of either, left high school or graduated, and now they're moving down either to North Carolina or somewhere full-time. They're pursuing their racing dream, but you still are buckled down in the school program. So how do you balance it all, and what do your teachers think and your classmates think of all this that you're doing?
So it was really kind of this whole like ARC thing has really helped, explain to my teachers and my friends, and like they think that I'm like a bad kid that's skipping school and like not paying attention, but it's like I'll miss like 3 days of school, come back on a different topic, went from 2 + 2 to X = Z, and you're just super confused on the topic. You're like, so it's hard. We try our best, and obviously I have friends that try to help me with all that stuff. And this ARC thing, it's like my teachers, I talk to them about it and bring hero cards and stuff, and they're like, so you do this, like, what is this, like a Hot Wheel thing? And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not
Hot Wheel. All right, you're gonna have to sit them down and teach them everything about ARC racing.
I'm like, it was really cool. It's like kind of just search my name. Like it's cool. It's like all this media and all this press interviews and all, really just the media. It really helps explain to the people in my life and people at school, what's going on, like the social media aspect of it with Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. They're like, oh, like this is in FloRacing. They're like in the FloRacing and Mav TV and all that stuff. They're like, oh, this is like a real deal. Like you're actually a driver. Like this is your job. This is your commitment. So it helps. It really helps with that. But yeah, probably gonna try some online schooling next year and maybe senior year too. But yeah, it's been a fun ride.
Final question for you. I need to know about the artwork or the sculpture behind you. Is that former trophies kind of meshed together?
So yeah, in the quarter midget racing, we raced a lot. I mean, I'd have 6 cars. My brother had 6 cars, and they give a trophy for each. We'd win, say, 50%, 3 trophies for both of us, 6 trophies a weekend, and we did that 25 weekends of the year. That's a lot of trophies. So what ended up happening is we took some trophies and took them apart, and the bigger ones at the bottom, all the same coating and all the same cover, and glued them together. And it's a really cool piece of artwork. Actually, my mom made it for us. And
looks like an eye.
It does.
Cool.
Yeah, it's like Iris Horn or something, right? From something like that. Yeah, it's really cool. It's cool to look at. It's really shiny. It's a centerpiece, and whole posters and road course legends, and just all these cool trophies and stuff that are just kind of in our little office.
Yeah, it's like a good talking point too, right? You have people over and they go, what's that?
Yeah.
And you can kind of open up about all the stories that are all behind those. That's really, really cool. Final thing for me is, obviously, we're just getting going here in 2022, but what does the rest of the season look like? Chasing that West Championship, or are we going back doing some supers? Like, what's your plan for the rest of the year?
So we're going to do the rest of me and my brother are going to do the rest of the SRL Pro Late Model Series. It's a good learning series. It's really competitive. And, like I was saying, it's the most cost effective for us at this current point in time, for talent and for learning and experiencing tracks. Plus most of the tracks are on the ARCA West schedule. So that's really cool. That, and I, stick, head to the grindstone and keep on working on the ARCA stuff and practicing and studying tracks and videos and all that stuff, and getting used to more ARCA stuff, and do our best, and wherever we come up, hopefully a couple more wins, hopefully some road course success, and traveling and just figuring it out. And I think we're going to have a couple more successes this year, but this weekend was really, really going to be really hard to beat.
Absolutely. Well, hey, best of luck to you in the rest of this season. I'm sure we're going to have you on this show plenty of more times as you continue developing your career, and not only hit the books, because you got a little bit before the next ARCA West race, but also get studying on some of those racetracks coming up, because you're going to be learning both in the classroom and obviously on the racing side of things too.
Yeah. That's super cool. Thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. That's Tanner Reif. Again, winning at Irwindale here about last week in the ARCA West Series. First of many, I think, to come here for that young man. We'll be right back here coming up on NASCAR Coast to Coast presented by FloRacing. You're watching NASCAR Coast to Coast presented by FloRacing, the new home of NASCAR Roots. Catch the Wheel and Modified Tour, ARC Menard Series, Pinty's, and NASCAR Weekly Tour races all season long on FloRacing.com. Subscribe today. Joining us now from her kitchen after winning this past weekend at Hickory, it's Annabeth Barnes-Crum. And Hopefully she doesn't touch her phone or else it may collapse on us here. But thanks for joining us. Congratulations on the big win over the weekend. How are things going this time of day? What you been up to?
Well, thank you so much for having me. We are just normal people. So we just do normal people stuff. So like I picked up my stepson from school, came home. Jake is giving our daughter a bath. Like we just do normal people stuff.
I love it. I love it.
Big night for you on Saturday night at Hickory Motor Speedway, live on FloRacing. So all the short track fans across the country could watch. Just out of the top 5, I think, in race 1, and then taking that checkered flag in race number 2. Quite a moment for you and your family.
Yeah, it was awesome. We actually just got a brand new car. So we started out the season with a brand new RNS car. They have got it going on. Marcus and all those guys at RNS, they're just killing it right now. So we came at it with a new car, and the first race of the season, we were kind of figuring that out. And then, so this would have been our second event of the season, and we were just super fast all day long. And it's weird the times we're living in as far as with the tire shortage situation. Nobody's practicing on new tires, which is crazy because you used to have endless sets of tires to be able to practice on. So we're really fast in practice on the old tires that we had, and then fast forward to qualifying, we put some new tires on, and it just completely changed everything that we had the car set up to do. So we qualified like 14th for the first race, and we were like, oh no, this is not good. And we spent like the 30 minutes before that first race started changing bump springs and shocks, and we just reconfigured everything that we had been doing all day. And it worked. So we finished 6th in that first race, and then we got a good invert. So we started 3rd in the second race. And at that point we knew it was ours to lose. And so they were kind of in trouble. So it just worked out, man. It was a really crazy start. Took it 3 wide going down into the first corner. It was pretty wild. And I told Jake spots for me, my husband. And he didn't say anything. Like he didn't say a word.
What?
Until we came out of turn 2. And and about 10 laps in, we took the lead and we just set sail.
That's so awesome. So these twin 40s that Hickory runs, I mean, they're really cool, right? Because you can kind of learn from race 1 to race 2, or, basically make the adjustments as you need to. What were kind of things from race 1 that you learned about your race car that led to race 2?
So race 1, the car was actually really good, but we did adjust on it a little bit. We needed it to turn just a little bit better in the center. We needed to get a little bit better rotation to really where we were the best was on the exit of the corner. We were just killing them on exit. And so we knew if we could get a little bit better turn in the center that we were really going to kill them in the second race. So just very minor adjustments going into that second race. Whereas we took huge swings going into the first race. So we knew after the first race, we were sitting pretty good. The car was handling good, just very minor adjustments. And it really all worked out. We took a really big gamble. We didn't know if it was going to work or not. It was definitely a 50-50 chance. It could have been bad, but so very minimal going into that second race, but it worked out perfectly.
I would say Hickory is unique in running twin features every now and again, and we're seeing it more now at short tracks across the country. How difficult is that to run 2 events in a night?
Well, actually, I really enjoy that because you do get the opportunity, if you don't knock it out of the park in the first race, you have the opportunity to catch an invert, because they always do an invert, and then B, set yourself up better for that next race, whether that's making an adjustment on the car or better track position or whatever it may be. So I really enjoy that. The part where it is difficult, especially in a point situation, is if that first race doesn't go well for you. You don't get an invert, you get your car tore up, whatever it may be. That's when it can be a little bit more tricky. That's when you might pull out the backup car from time to time. But no, I think it's fun. I think that more tracks should do that because long races, they're cool. And they do those too. But I think there's such excitement when there's 40 laps. Nobody is riding around. It's just like you're full throttle. You're just going for it every single lap. And I think that's fun for me as a driver. And I think it's fun for the fans too to watch.
Absolutely, yeah. It was absolutely fun to watch there on FloRacing over the weekend. We were talking before the interview started, right? You haven't been on this show since you were, I think, 17 is what she said. So a lot has changed since then. I mean, being married, having kids. So does this weekend's win now, like, does winning now mean anything different than maybe before all these life changes?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I feel like, racing has been my world like my entire life since I was a kid. And it was almost when I was younger, that's just what we did. We go to the racetrack, if you win, cool. But that was like always it was just like normalcy. It was just me. Like that was what we were doing. And I think the longer you do that, it can kind of lose its sparkle a little bit when it's just your everyday life.
Sure.
But definitely not meeting. I've known Jake my entire life, but marrying Jake, who also races, that added like an excitement back into racing for me, like I hadn't had. And, because it switched. I don't know. He just kind of added fuel to the fire. Like we both are just really big personalities. So it livened it up a lot. But when I had my daughter Kinley in 2019, I was terrified, honestly, that my whole identity was in driving race cars. Like I'm Annabeth Barnes, I'm a race car driver. And I was so terrified that wasn't going to be who I was anymore. I like pretty much went into hiding for like 9 months. And then I was like, surprise, I had a baby.
Yeah.
But it was for that reason. It was because I didn't know what was going to come after that. But I was really lucky. I had like my whole team just supported me. My family supported me. They're like, whenever you're ready to race again, like you're going to race again. And so I raced for the first time after Kinley when she was 6 weeks old. So we were right back at it.
Wow.
And since having her, I am more excited and more inspired than I've ever been, like behind the wheel. I feel like it's just for the biggest thing for me is I had never seen a female have a child and continue to race. I had never seen it done. And that was terrifying for me because I thought, oh, it can't be done. You can't have it all. And I think that's the coolest thing for me is now I have other friends other female drivers who are my friends. And especially over the last couple of days, just reaching out to me like I inspire them that they don't have to be afraid to have a family and to be married and that you can still continue to do what you love. And that's the coolest thing for me because I didn't have that. So to get to show other people, like you can do it, like you can do whatever you want to do. And it makes it even cooler because now I have this tiny little person who is looking up to me and I'm not going to let her down. So, I'm more excited about racing now than I've ever been.
And
Yes.
Saturday night.
Love it.
I love it. And Saturday night was the first time you're all together in victory lane because I believe the last time you won was 2020 and nobody was allowed to go anywhere at the racetrack except for their pit area, right?
Right. Yeah. So in 2020, my husband wasn't there. The kids were not there. It was very minimal. There were no fans. It was really a bizarre experience and it was still awesome and it was still exciting and all those things. But this past weekend, it was just so much more special. I remember they were starting to take photos and all the things like that. And my mom had Kinley up in the stands and she starts coming down and I saw her and I was like, wait a minute. And I, went and grabbed her. She was so excited. Jake has never gotten to see me like win in person. It was just really cool. It was just all overall, it's a very different experience than the experience I had in 2020, whereas no one was there and I just had to like call them on the phone and be like, guess what? We just won. So it was just awesome to get to like relish in that moment with my family.
So going back to Jake, obviously you guys are a racing family, and it's really special to share your passions with one another, right? I mean, that just makes your bond as a married couple stronger. But I got to imagine there has been some instance where you two are on the track together or something bad happens to one of y'all. And I mean, are there awkward conversations, or are there moments where like you're sleeping on the couch tonight because I'm mad at you? Like what has that been like over the last few years?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Which we haven't had too much of that. We try not to. We found out early on in our marriage, which we have been married 6 years, which is crazy to me. But early on in our marriage, we still kind of thought that was going to be fine. Like if we both race together. And we learned very quickly that was not going to be good for our marriage if we wanted to stay married very long. I remember specifically one year at Martinsville, we were both racing, and we were running terrible. We were just not fast. We weren't getting it. Nothing was going our way. And then we qualified. We didn't qualify very good. So I was kind of down and disappointed. And Jake had qualified like third or fourth, but the front guys got disqualified. So he like inherited the pole. And I was so mad about that. I legit, it was at that moment that I was like, this is not going to work. So definitely there was, I remember that night, I was so just like salty about that we definitely slept in separate beds, and we definitely had to have someone come in the room and like moderate that conversation. Because I was like, he was like, why can't you be happy for me? I'm like, would I be happy for anyone else?
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
So it's definitely hard, but we learned early on that that's not something we're good at navigating. And so we do that as least as possible. It's just better for the marriage overall.
You mentioned a couple of moments ago, you have other lady friends that also compete in racing, and at Hickory Motor Speedway the other night, I think there are 4 ladies in the field just in your race alone. That's pretty cool. You don't see that at a lot of racetracks in a single division, to where you have 4 or 5 ladies competing. Why do you think that is down there? It's obviously a great thing.
I really can't speak to why it's specifically there. I know that we experienced that a lot last year, also running at like Tri-County and different places. But it's so cool. The first race of the season in early March, I think there were 5 females in the field. And I remember saying to the guys that I had never experienced that before. And it was so cool to me because it really is a full circle moment. Because I've been racing there since I was 16 years old. And I remember when I first started, I was it. Like, I was the only female. There was no one else for many years. And it was still, at that time, you were still got the weird looks. It was still very different. It was still very new. And so now to go out there, and there's multiple women in the field, and it was a 1-2 female finish in that second race. And that is so cool for me. And I'm so happy that like young drivers coming in get to experience that, and they're not going to have to know what it was like to be the only one. I think that's really, really special. And it is something kind of unique to the tracks that we're racing at here in the South. And I'm just excited about it. I think that's amazing. I don't know why it is that way, but I think that speaks to just the turning of the tides in racing in general, in the sport as a whole, that more females are getting into the sport itself. And I think it's awesome. And it was really cool having that 1-2 finish the other night.
So what about your daughter? Are you going to introduce racing, let it happen naturally, make her do it, try it? What's that going to be like?
Well, she's obsessed with it anyway.
Okay.
So she's there. It's kind of like, if we're there, she's there. Like, she's not somewhere else. She's not at a babysitter. She's there. And she's all about it. She's all up into it. The older she gets, the more like she wants to know how things work. And she's really into like that part of it. Like, she loves to stand in front of like the gale force, and just she's mesmerized by that. I think if she comes to us and is like, I really want to do this, then of course we're gonna have, like, she's gonna have our full support. But it's never gonna be something that we push onto her, because it was never something that we were pushed to do. To this day, my parents always had the attitude of like, you can do it as long as you want to do it. And if the moment you tell us that you're done, like, you can be done. And so that's kind of how I feel. My stepson, Bentley, he's about to be 10, and we bought him a go-kart a couple years ago, and he went out like one time and he was like, meh, it's okay.
He didn't get the bug. He didn't get the bug.
No,
that's all right.
He wasn't that into it. So, and that's fine. He plays baseball and soccer, and that's cool. So it's whatever she wants to do. If she's into it, then we'll be thrilled.
My final question for you, we're talking about ladies involved in the sport, especially at Hickory. Your car owner, I believe, also a woman, right?
Yeah, that's another thing that I just think is so unique about our program, is that it's also a female-owned team. Yeah. So female-owned team, female driver, and you definitely don't see that a lot. And it's so special to me. And I think that we are able, me and Kim McCorkle, who owns the team, we're just so able to connect in that way. And that was huge for me, especially after having my daughter, because she was just amazing, so supportive, because she had the same ideals that I had, as far as this doesn't have to stop you from doing the things that you're passionate about, doing the things that you love, and being great at that. I so truly feel in my soul that, like, this is just going to be such an epic season for us. And a lot of it has to do with just the support that we have, and the family dynamic that we're in. Like, I just feel so strongly that when everything aligns in your life, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, like, that's your moment. And that's where I'm at right now, like where me and Jake are in our marriage, with our kids, with God, with our family, with our team. Like, everything's so aligned right now. And I think it's just about to, like, explode and be so awesome.
That's so awesome. My final question for you, and I'm going to look back because this is the first time I've gotten a chance to talk to you. I remember watching Racing Dreams as a kid. And I'm 30 years old, but, I was still a kid. And I remember, because I was driving quarter midgets at the time, thinking how cool it would be to, have this documentary about what you're doing. But I also thought, man, the pressure must have been insane. Like, I mean, there's pressure on me, just on me personally. I can't imagine having this crew around, and, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's producing the thing. What did that help you when you were a kid? Obviously you're trying to get your career off the ground, and now you're part of this documentary. I mean, what was that experience like? And did that really help you kind of, get used to kind of that spotlight a little bit, and kind of people looking at your career?
Yeah, that was such an amazing experience. And I was really lucky to have that at that age. But to be honest with you, I was 11, 12 years old at the time, and I didn't realize what it was doing for me.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? I was too young to really understand the weight of it. And now I think the biggest thing that has done for me in my life and in my career was just getting me used to talking to people.
Sure.
That we would sit for hours, and I mean hours, and just talk. Like, you're just talking to a camera for hours and hours and hours. And then after the film came out, we like toured the country basically, all together, and just talking to people and doing interviews. And I think that was the greatest thing for me in that time of my life. I don't think I would be the speaker that I am today, or the person that I am today, but it was an enormous amount of pressure in the moment. But I definitely don't think that I, in that moment, understood the weight of it like I do now. I can't imagine what that must have been like for my parents.
Yeah.
Now that I have kids, like, I can't imagine what that must have been like for them. But It was for sure. It almost feels like imposter syndrome. Is that a thing? That's how when people talk to me about racing dreams, that's how I feel. Is that it was kind of a lifetime ago, and like a whole nother person did that. Like I'm like, oh, that was me.
That's awesome.
What's next for you? I think 75 lapper this week at Hickory. Is that what I saw on the schedule?
Yeah, we're gonna go win again at Hickory Motor Speedway this weekend.
We
got a guarantee right here on Coast to Coast. We got a guarantee.
Yeah, oh,
there's Kinley.
Yeah. So that's the plan for this weekend. And honestly, we're so touch and go with our schedule. Like I don't even, we don't know where we're going to be from week to week, but we're definitely going to go and spank them again at Hickory this weekend.
There we go.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Seriously, it was a pleasure talking to you. Looking forward to catching up with you hopefully later on this season. Good luck this weekend, too. We'll be watching on that 75 lapper.
Yes, thank you so much. We're so excited and hope we're going to be in victory lane again.
Awesome. Thanks, Kinley, for joining us. Hopefully bat time was good for you.
Bye. Yeah.
Oh, awesome stuff. That's Annabeth Barnes-Crum joining us here once again on Coast to Coast, picking up the win at Hickory this past weekend, going out for another one here this weekend. We'll be right back here on NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by FloRacing. You're watching NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by FloRacing, the new home of NASCAR Roots. Catch the Wheel and Modified Tour, ARC Menard Series, Pinty's, and NASCAR Weekly Tour races all season long on FloRacing.com. Subscribe today. And welcome back into NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by FloRacing. Kyle, those pretty spectacular interviews we had with a couple incredible drivers, but it's always good to visit Annabeth. You said you hadn't seen her in, almost 10 years? So that's pretty cool to have her back on the show.
It's been a while. It's right after that documentary came out. I think about two or 3 years, maybe a little more than that, after it came out, and when she really started running late models at Hickory Motor Speedway. We had her in studio several years ago, I believe the first or second season of NASCAR Coast to Coast. So it was good to see her. That's what I like about this show. We're able to talk to these personalities that a lot of folks aren't able to see week in and week out at a lot of these short tracks across the country, because they're out there. They're out there by the dozens at every short track across the country, at least the dozens. And it's pretty cool to be able to spotlight many of those over the course of a season here on NASCAR Coast to Coast.
Yeah, absolutely. So keep an eye on both Annabeth and Tanner for what they have coming up here later this year. All right, speaking of personalities, we talk SRX, which is still, a couple months away out in June, but some of the racetracks are offering their hometown heroes, their short track aces, to race against some of the best of SRX. And the latest one was just announced with Peyton Sellers. South Boston's going to be the representative for their hometown hero event when SRX visits on June 15th. Peyton, a multi-time track champion out there at South Boston, 6 times in fact, and a pretty cool nod for him to get to go race against the likes of Elio Castroneves and Paul Tracy and the like.
If you have to pick one at South Boston Speedway, Peyton would probably be the one. Like you mentioned his accolades a moment ago, all those championships, that is, all of those wins. Didn't necessarily surprise me when they made that announcement midweek last week that he was going to represent South Boston Speedway locals at SRX there in a couple of months' time.
Now, meanwhile, our hometown entries for Nashville, I think, Stafford, Five Flags, I-55, yet to be announced. Nashville, folks, for those of you tuned into the show, you can actually vote yourself. They're offering a fan vote. They have 6 finalists. I know Bubba Pollard's one of them. You can go on there and cast your vote. Who you think should represent their hometown heroes in the SRX event at Nashville. Stafford is part of the Spring Sizzler. Whoever wins that gets in. I know coming up actually this weekend at Five Flags is going to be the Pepperjack Twin 100s. The best average finisher from both of those races, will be the driver to represent them as well. I-55, I'm not sure what they're doing. Maybe announced TBD, so we'll keep an eye on that.
You mentioned Nashville a moment ago. The fan vote is open, and I tell you what, we talked about her last week, Brittany Zamora.
Yeah.
She is all over social media. I'll be surprised if she doesn't get it, because every time I log in, Facebook or Instagram, there's hey, the link's right here. Click on it, and please vote for me. I'd love to participate. And she has they all have intro videos But when it comes to getting the word out there, she's done a great job.
Kind of reminds me of like class president in high school, like campaigning for votes. It's kind of cool.
Exactly.
All right.
Were you a class president?
No, I was not. Didn't want to even try. I was not popular, and nobody liked me in high school, but that's besides the point. All right, so once again, the SRX Series does open Friday, June 18th at Five Flags, so pretty exciting for that. All right, NASCAR Home Tracks, by the way, this is a pretty cool initiative, and I think Stafford may be on the list. We'll have to double check. But 21 of the NASCAR-sanctioned short tracks around the country are eligible to be voted on for which track you think is the best. The winner, $50,000 check from Advanced Auto Parts goes to help revitalize, add improvements, make adjustments to your racetrack, and really it's a reward for being named as the fan favorite of short tracks. And last year it was Berlin Raceway out in Michigan, our own Jeff Striegel, a part of that, and pretty cool to see him win that inaugural $50,000. So we'll see who's going to win this year.
And again, he used his platform here on the Motor Racing Network and campaigns early and often. And that's what you have to do. And there's a lot of great short tracks out there that could really use that money, whether it's improvements to little things, the sound system, the lighting, the grandstands, amenities in the pits for the competitors. It's amazing how far $50,000 can go for some of these short tracks. And I think every one of them out there could use it for something. And it was fun to see Jeff get that a year ago. I believe it was Ryan Blaney that called Jeff and announced to him that he had won. So look forward to seeing who gets the money this year.
Second place does get $15,000, third gets $10,000, but every little bit helps. So if you can be a podium finalist, that would be fantastic. Again, voting, the first round begins on May 6th, so you still have a little bit, and that can all be done at advancemytrack.com. Second round is the 9th through the 13th of the top 6 of the 21 that get voted through. So we'll stay tuned to that. All right, Kyle, we're going to tie things up here on NASCAR Coast to Coast. A lot of action coming up this weekend. First thing that comes to mind is the Twin Pepperjack 100s coming up at Five Flags Speedway. The best average finisher of those two gets a ride at the SRX Series.
Yeah, big night for them. It's an event that the track has been talking about now for a couple months, ever since that they were announced on the SRX schedule, and this is how they were going to get their local competitor. Healthy entry list, a lot of big names. I think all the big names that we expect to be down there. So everyone wants a shot at that SRX ride. So I look forward to seeing who gets that spot this weekend. And then in a couple of weeks' time, we'll know the Stafford regular as that entry list continues to grow for the 50th Spring Sizzler. In fact, a driver we had on a couple of months ago, Matt Hirschman, and you mentioned Bobby Labonte earlier. Both have entered for that event. I wonder what happens if Labonte wins, because he's already an SRX driver.
Ooh. Is there you better ask the folks up at Stafford what the contingency plan is, because, it's not exactly a miracle situation. He could win the thing. We don't know. So, Smart Modified Tours are back on this weekend. We mentioned, again, it's Hirschman versus Caleb Hetty. Again, that battle is going to be all season long. Obviously, Matt coming off a big win this past weekend. They're at Franklin County Speedway in Virginia. That's going to be exciting as well. Again, all on FloRacing, so check that out for sure. ARCA Sierra Super Series presented by Jegs at Anderson Speedway in Indiana. I had a chance to race it, actually, in Anderson way back in the day. That's up on Saturday, 125-lap super late model event. Some of the top Midwest super late model racers are signed in, and we talk about the West Coast, the New England, but the Southeastern, Midwest is coming on strong with some late models too.
They are led by like a Ty Majeski. He's going to put that region of the country on the map. So going to be a great event this weekend for ARCA CRA. Other tracks opening up: Langley Speedway, their first NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series event this week, featuring their late model stock cars. Irwindale back in action out on the left coast with twin late model features on Saturday night. And recently announced, they're not opening this weekend, but Alaska Raceway Park. We talked about it during one of the breaks a moment ago. They're part of the FloRacing program for when they do open in a couple of weeks' time. Saturday, May 14th, their opening event. So add to your FloRacing schedule Alaska Raceway Park whenever they are on the racetrack.
Yeah, running pro late models, and I mentioned that to Kyle, if you haven't seen it, and obviously Alaska's hard to get to sometimes, but you know what? It is the only sanctioned NASCAR track in the state, and it is absolutely beautiful. It has one of the best backgrounds, I think, of all racetracks in North America, just the mountains and the landscape around it. Pretty cool. So if you haven't checked it out, it's worth even go check out their opening race when they do open. Cars Tour late model stocks, pro late models are at Greenville Pickens Speedway this weekend. So Cars Tour is rolling right along through their season with the Perrier Tank Lines 225. Again, the Quapple brothers lead both. Caden leads the pro late models, I believe, and Carson leads the super lates, or late model stocks, excuse me. Yeah. And that's all on Cars Tour TV. The only other thing I have is the Live for 5, race 1 of the Icebreaker 100. So 2 Icebreakers this weekend. The Icebreaker 100 at Dells Raceway Park for the super late models. Derek Kraus putting in an entry. So he's going to go from Martinsville in the Truck Series out to Dells to try to tackle the super late model.
And Berlin Raceway, we talked about Jeff Striegel a moment ago. They have an icebreaker coming up in a few weeks as well. So a lot of icebreakers. I'll be back at Thompson this Saturday for part 2 of our icebreaker for the tour type modified. So a lot of racing this weekend from literally coast to coast.
Yeah, not to mention a local track near you. So get online, look at where your nearest local track is. It could be right around the corner, and you may not even know it. Go check it out and support grassroots racing, as it's some of the best out there for sure. Kyle, weekend plans coming up, or are you just locked into flow?
I'm at Thompson on Saturday
for
the makeup, and then I guess Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. I'll be tuned into the Motor Racing Network and our live coverage of trucks, Xfinity, and Cup racing from another one of the great short tracks in the sport, the Martinsville Speedway in Virginia. Sunday, I have you know what? The local go-kart track opens on Sunday, so I'll be down there.
Kyle, no rest for the wicked for you, for sure. And obviously, yes, tune into Motor Racing Network coverage from Martinsville Speedway as well. Like Kyle mentioned, a short track, and it may be NASCAR trucks and Xfinity and Cup, but you know what? They drive just like some of these super late models sometimes too, so using the chrome horn definitely when needed. For Kyle Rickey, I'm Chris Wilner. Appreciate you guys tuning in again to NASCAR Coast to Coast presented by FloRacing. We'll see you next week. If you enjoyed this episode of NASCAR Coast to Coast, be sure to subscribe to FloRacing, the new home of NASCAR Roots, where you can catch the Whelen Modified Tour, the ARCA Menard Series, Pinty's, and NASCAR Weekly Tour races all season long on FloRacing.com. Subscribe today.
For sure. Thank you. That was super
now
cool.
get that homework done, all right?
I got to go work down in the shop.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Priorities. I like that.
I realized today I was halfway through school, and I was welding this shirt, and it has holes from welding.
Nice.
I was going through school, like, what's wrong with your shirt? And I was like, oh.
Putting in work.
Right. Yeah, right?